Christian parenting. I'm Julie Lyles-Carr. You're listening to the All Mom Does podcast, part of the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. Today on the All Mom Does podcast, I have someone who is so beloved, and you probably know her name. You've probably seen her everywhere from Hallmark Channel, CNN, all kinds of different places that love to have her because she's such a great guest. Wyma, thanks so much for being with me today.
Well, I feel really special to be in your little spot of the world. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Now, I know that you're in the Dallas, Texas area, so you're right up the road from me. But tell our listeners everything about the kids and all the things.
Okay, so we have 5 kids, and our oldest is 24, and then they just came back to back to back. So 24, 22, 20, 18, and then there was a tiny little bit of a gap because you can get pregnant in perimenopause. Who knew? You know, it was like such a shocker. And that kid was so funny. Someone came to him because there is a tiny bit of a gap. And I'm not a spring chicken either. So, and they were like, oh, you must have been an accident. I mean, seriously, he's almost 14, and this was last year. And I'm like, really? Yeah. Is that what people say? and I was like, sweetheart, you were not an accident. You were a surprise. Like, all of you were very surprisey, you know, but so not an accident. And I love that, like, just as being a mom, because I think there's so much pressure, you know, and the fact that these kids are yours, like they were for you, whether their little lives were woven in your womb or somebody else's womb, you were set aside to be the mother of these children because you can love them better than anybody else can. And that to me is so much what it's all about, are these wonderful human beings that we get to walk life next to, and that you're definitely equipped to do it. So I think that's why I started writing, because stuff kind of made me mad at what was stealing from it. And it was like, right. Don't let this stuff steal from you, because you really are the one who is set apart for this job because you're the best to be able to do it.
Right. Yeah, I love that you bring up that idea that there are so many things in our culture that want to steal away from the joy of being a mom. And listen, I fully get that sometimes we need a safe place to talk about that we're tired, we're stressed, we're frustrated, all the things. But sometimes it can feel like to me that conversation can overtake and overwhelm the things that are awesome and are a privilege about being a mom. Do you tend to notice that these days in some of our, not just in our media, not just our social media, but sometimes just amongst us girls as we're talking?
Yeah, and you know what I find so interesting? I think one of the greatest gifts that come with being a mom is that it's really actually one of the only times, and it's a window because, you know, you're always a mom, but the time that you have your kids at home is not that long. Mm-hmm. And it's like this only time in your life where you actually, a huge portion of your being is to think about somebody besides yourself. And to me, like, that's a gift, because you can watch your kids in school. It's always like, what grade are you getting, or what, you know, when you were in school, it was like, what am I doing next? Well, how have I achieved? When you know, in the workplace, well, you have to go and have someone write their survey on you, you know? And so you're living up to some standard in every capacity, except for this period when you're a mom, when your job is actually to think about somebody besides yourself. And that's a humongous gift in and of itself. Why ruin it by making it about me and how sad I am because I was in the car for 4 hours, you know? Make it fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what we can sometimes do by the complaining, is make it more of an endurance than actually living and enjoying the moments that you have, which are precious, the good and the bad. I mean, they're just, man, it's great. And it's like, don't let anything steal from it. I know there's hard times, but even in the hard times, lean into the joy, because the people next to you get to see you doing that too. It's a great ride. It's a great ride.
I think it's one of the things that I experienced in certain phases of my motherhood, because with the ages and stages and with 8 of them, you know, it's like where I started my mothering career versus where I'm trying to get these 14-year-old twins, you know, finally through all the things. The thing that is interesting to me is I feel like there has been a season that I don't know was really at the beginning of my mothering career, but I'm seeing now, and I've seen accelerating, I guess, is the way I would say it, Kay, is this sense of in trying to do self-care, which I think is important, but we are beginning to miss some of the lessons a little bit and not accept them with the same kind of grace that maybe we could when it comes to the interruption, the inconvenience, the messiness of having kids. And what I mean by that is sometimes I'll encounter someone who will say to me, well, I got to have my kid on this very specific schedule, and they're going to be folded into our lives, and I'm not saying that those are bad goals or anything like that. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a schedule or you shouldn't have, dedicated bedtimes. But what I am saying is that's interesting to me is that sometimes is fodder for God giving you a kid who will not sleep through the night, who's going to do things their own way. And when things don't go up to those expectations, and I'm not talking about the stuff that is truly mega crisis, but when stuff doesn't go up to expectation in terms of how we thought life was going to be with kids, I think sometimes we get under the idea that we're missing it, or we messed it up, or these kids are doing it wrong. Don't they know that we're supposed to have this and that for ourselves? How do we allow and embrace the things that are just part of motherhood that maybe we're not talking about enough, or maybe we think need to be fixed that don't need to be fixed? How do we distinguish between that space and the space where maybe really we do need a timeout and we do need some self-care going on? What is resilience building? What is good strength training? And what is a danger sign that maybe we're getting too depleted?
Some of those things are the hardest when you're tired. I noticed that, especially like on number 4. And, I'm picking up the track carpool, and all these very smelly boys get in the car, and I'm rolling down the windows instantly. And years earlier, I kind of gave up carpooling. I did carpooling for convenience, and I think I probably did carpooling because I wanted my kids to be included. It's like if I can go to the core of why I did it, there's probably fear in there some way. And so I quit because I was like, this is the only time I've got with them in the car. The magic of a car is their seatbelt and everybody's face forward. And so sometimes conversation comes in that. Mm-hmm. And so this is where it kind of going along towards your question. It's me with so many kids. You're in the car a lot. You're destined to be in the car.
Right.
And it can be inconvenience. It can be, it's, a waste of time. All these kinds of things that legitimately you can just chalk it up, or you can live it. Oh, okay. So here's one of the keys, I think. I read through Ecclesiastes. I don't know why. I really love the Bible, by the way. It's one of my favorite books, not because I think I hated it for years because I had to read it, or I don't know. I came at it with baggage until I fell in love with it. And then it's like the treasure trove that is in that book. Yeah. And there's a beautiful part in Ecclesiastes because Solomon calls it out. There's nothing new under the sun. Bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people. It's just it. If you're going to try and figure it out, good luck, because you're not going to. And at the end, he says, the secret is this, that to eat and to drink, not as a coping skill or to avoid something, just to enjoy your life and live it and do your toil and enjoy it, because that is God's gift to you, is that you can just enjoy it. And so in these toil moments, because a lot of it is toil, to not endure it, but to live it, to actually live it. And so sometimes I feel like in those places where we complain and actually can jump on the bandwagon complaining, or even fire up the complaining, don't. I mean, we don't walk away from that encouraged. And I'm not saying in some Pollyanna way, but in these moments, recognize the hard stuff, call it out, don't avoid, live it. And find the joy in the midst, because it's there and it's for us. And I think part of that is seeing your children as human beings, of great worth. It's not a project. It's not an accomplishment. It's not a category. Parenting isn't a category. Right. We've kind of made it that. And it's sort of these are human beings. They're not objects. And they're human beings of the greatest worth, worth that is beyond compare. I don't think we can fathom the worth of these children and ourselves. When it comes to self-care, it's if we're going to hit self-care, please let's go to these places where your identity has been declared and your worth determined by the one who has declared you precious, the one who has declared you seen, who has declared you chosen, who has declared you cherished, who has named you sought after with a capital S and a capital A. Live into that. Invite these people around us into that, and and turn down the volume on the stuff that really doesn't give to us in the moment. It steals. And
Right.
I think a lot of what you're talking about, it's like those are joy stealers. And it's not in some capacity to avoid.
Right.
It's like life to its fullest.
I love that idea of making sure that we are embracing that it's okay to enjoy our kids. It seems strange to say, and yet I see it. I see it in myself. I've seen it in other moms, where it's almost this strange avoidance of just abiding and enjoying what is. And Kay, I am self-confessed one of the guilty ones in terms of when there's been a soccer practice and a dance this and a blah, 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 and I'm the one driving and taking everybody everywhere. Part of how I made a lot of parenting and career stuff work together was I always had my work bag with me. I was always sitting and doing the thing while I was waiting. And I can remember watching some other parents seemingly they weren't being lazy at all, but just sitting around and kind of watching their kids practice the thing and thinking, what are you doing? Like, this is downtime. You got to get going. Like, you got to get your emails answered. You've got to do all the things. And I'm coming into more of a space now. See, it's only taken me 8 kids in all these years, but I am coming into more of a space now where I'm like, I don't have to always be double timing some of the time that is the doldrums, a little bit of parenting, those times in the carpool line, those times in the parking lot, all those times that I've been very prideful sometimes about how much I got accomplished in those moments. And I still think it was a great way to try to do both. But that sense of neither is it wrong to just simply sit and enjoy your kid. It's really okay.
Well, they're pretty terrific.
Yeah.
You know, they're very interesting people, and it's okay to like them and love them at the same, you love them, but they're really fun to like. And I'm with you. And let me tell you, coming from a working mom perspective, which is where you are, you've got to double down. And it's like, that's where you have to give we have to be willing to give ourselves a break in these situations. And that's where, like, even in this new project that I've been working on, mercy is a part of it. Like, and it sort of hit us one day, unavoidably. I didn't come up with this. It was given to us. And it was this idea of the power of thankfulness, kindness, and mercy, practicing them. Mm-hmm. And when you practice them even together, it's sick. Like, it's crazy what happens. And mercy is one of those, as a component, it's almost like the soul piece. And so even this part of having compassion on yourself in that moment, that's mercy. And it's genuine and it's powerful, because what it does is it actually sets you free from the things that probably are holding us hostage. And it could be something holding me hostage. If I'm willing to ask why, and if I'm willing to actually get to the motive behind things, you can even get so much more freedom. I can't tell you how many times I was at the park with my computer. I mean, really? Yeah. And I taught my kids, don't walk off the edge of this play equipment at 2. It will hurt you. Like, just don't, And then I sat down and got my work done because I had to get it done. And there I could live in the judgment of the people around me talking about me, scoffing and gasping as he walks and teeters to the edge. Or I could live in the capacity of like, you know what, we've had this conversation. I've taught him not to do that. He doesn't want to walk off the edge, and he has the capacity not to. And then be able to live in this place where I can be compassionate to myself, which I didn't know at that age. Like, I'm with you. The stuff you learn, and it's like, I don't sit there going, oh, I wish I knew. I just sit there going, I'm so thankful. Thank you so much for this. Like, thank you for teaching us these things. I'm convinced that the Lord really desires us to live in the freedom of who he created us to be.
Right.
All of us.
You refer to this project. We do it together, right? You refer to this project, the Peace Project, the 30-day experiment, practicing thankfulness, kindness, and mercy. Of course, I have a child named Mercy, so I love that word. Yeah, I do. I have a child named Mercy. But I love this idea of taking 30 days to be really intentional about these practices. So how did the idea of 30 days come to be? Because, sometimes we hear people talk about, hey, walk in kindness to yourself, walk in compassion. But I love that you're giving it some parameters to really think about it. So why did the 30-day thing emerge?
But why does anything emerge? So I seriously was literally hit by this whole concept. I have a weekly gathering at my house, in our neighborhood, where we get to contemplate scripture together. It is so much fun. That morning I went in, Of course, as is often the case in a large household, I went in to get milk out of the refrigerator. There were 2 cartons that were empty
Of
in the
course,
refrigerator.
because you
All
put
right?
them back in the refrigerator.
It's
What is that?
I don't know. And it's the same with cereal boxes.
Yep.
I do not understand it. And so I'm a tiny bit frustrated, which is what now I know it's like discord. There's something going on that has completely stolen my peace, as if I even had any that morning. We live in Dallas. We live in an older neighborhood, and so we still have side drives, and our street is kind of packed with cars, and there's a park that dead ends into our street. And so I'm backing out to go to the grocery store to get the milk for these people coming to my house for Bible study, and I look down the street. It's completely packed, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And this very nice car pulls over, and I'm sitting there going, that is the nicest thing. And I was like, okay, I'm backing out. I back out into the street, and all of a sudden it's like this huge black truck has barreled up on me, and I have a few choice words going on in my head, like, are you for real? This is my street, you know? And that car was not backing down. Like, that truck was not backing down. And so I'm like, fine, you know, and I put the car in reverse, and I have to back up like 3 houses. Like, I didn't even like just pull over. I had to like back it up. And as I did, Julie, it was the craziest thing. I was forced to look up. And when I looked up, there was this beautiful sunrise. And I was sort of like, what is wrong with me? Like, why would this make me angry? And I was sort of like, I am in a car. Like, I'm in a car with air conditioning. I'm going to a grocery store with refrigerated items. People someone might say, hi, Kay. You know, I'm sort of like, cut it out. And so right there, I'm doing like thankfulness in my head, like just sort of like, and I'm instantly breathing because I had looked up. And then as I'm backing down, I am now backing down the street, like literally going, please go. Like, legitimately, you go first. Right. And as the guy pulled by me, I looked in that car and thought, I have no idea what's going on in that person's life. Like, nothing.
Right.
They could be racing to the hospital for all I know, or they could be a jerk. Either way, something's going on in their life. And that was that. I went to the store. I was like euphoric walking through that place. Okay.
Releasing somebody. Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy. And I came home. It was so much that I told the girls in the gathering, and I was like, the weirdest thing happened this morning. And I was like, I still like physically feel good. And so, being Texans, we've heard of the Whole30, you know?
Right.
Like, I'm sort of like, the Whole30, I'm just going to tell you, I've never done it because it scares me. Like, I'm afraid of it. I mean, I don't think I could do it, but I'm pretty sure I'd be crabby on it, you know, because you're fasting. And so, as I was talking with the ladies, the next week, one of them came back and said, I'm doing your thing. And I was like, what is my thing? And she was like, that kindness, thankfulness, mercy thing, you know, because the compassion was the big piece of the mercy in that. Right. And I was sitting there going, what if we did something that was healthy for our thoughts, like our soul, in the same way that we would do it for our physical bodies? Mm-hmm. And that's where I was like, yeah, this could be fun. I'm doing a Soul 30. Like, I'm going to, for 30 days, practice thankfulness, kindness, and mercy as a feast. Like, that I'm feasting on it, and I wonder what will happen. And some friends were happy to jump on at one point, and my kids, I don't know why they do anything with my harebrained ideas, but they did too. And it was, it's just undeniable. And I can just say, I would love for anybody to purchase the book, because I literally do unpack everything, going, why? Like, why? What is it about kindness? What is it about thankfulness? What does that even mean? It didn't take long for me to realize the reason why it's so powerful is because it is living out the greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Thankfulness, okay? Mm-hmm. Love others as you love yourself. Kindness, which you can do, like you can do it every day. And loving through compassion, forgiveness, grace. It's so powerful. And it's not in a way where you're a victim, like you're letting anybody walk over you, because that is not a part of this story. A part of the story is coming at it through the willingness that you can only do when your significance has been settled by the one who settled it for you. Right. And you can do it any day, anywhere, and it literally breathes life into your day, which I was telling you even as we got on. We've had curveballs today that really could curl your hair. One of them, it could take her down.
Yeah.
And to be fighting for these things that I know give life in the midst of anything that's going on, it does. And it allows joy to be present no matter what is going on. It's so powerful.
Right, right. It's amazing to me that I don't often connect the dots that there is a God math going on in these things, that when we practice thankfulness and kindness and gratitude and mercy and all of those things to ourselves, to others, that peace ends up being what that equals to. That is the result when you add all of that up as a sum total. Peace, to me, I think a lot of times we seem to pursue as something where we're going to calm ourselves down and we're going to take deep breaths and and that has its place, no question. We need to rest, absolutely. But I love that in this 30-day peace project, what you found was that there were active things we can do to have a state of peace that are not just the shutting out of the world or the slowing ourselves down. They're very, very proactive. Was that a result that you actually found kind of fascinating, that peace was the thing that you ended up gaining in the conduction of these?
I did at the beginning until it really started hitting me why. Because it's not, the reason is because these, especially when you hit mercy and therein lies the gift, you can't do it on your own. We can't do that. Thankfulness, I can do a thankful journal. Like I can force myself to do that. Kindness, I can force myself to do that too. Like I could actually go, I need to do something kind. And I can get like some brownies that we have and take them to my neighbor, something which is legit, and it will make you, like, it really does make your day. But when you start doing these acts of mercy, they're so deep in your soul, you can't do it. And whenever you do it, you're actually connecting with peace, the peace that has a name, and it is Jehovah Shalom. Okay. And this kind of peace, that word shalom, and when Christ came into any room after the resurrection, he always said, peace be with you. My peace be with you. Okay. He is peace. And shalom means completeness. And it means wholeness. That word actually means the coming together of opposites. And that's why in Hebrew, when it's spoken, it says hello and goodbye.
Wow.
It's taking darkness and making it light. And that's where I was sort of like, the reason why this has like something going for it, I'm really not kidding you. It's not us.
Yeah.
It's like the essence of peace. Like you really are engaging with peace, and it's not momentary. It's a definer. It's so significant, and it's so fun to talk to. Like, this is a great conversation with you coming from a faith perspective, because whether you are engaging with the faith aspect or not, it is what we were all created to do. It's actually what you're created for. And I think that's why, like, physically you feel better. Your brain is created for it. There are parts of your brain that you access that light up that cannot be accessed in any other way outside of these acts. Altruistic kindness actually fires a part of your brain that is only fired that way. And when it does, endorphins flood through your body. And they're learning the same about compassion. I mean, it's like, of course, science would be proving all these things. And It's like, that's why it feels so good, because you were actually created for it.
You were made to do it, yeah. Distinguish for us what a difference would be between an act of kindness and an act of mercy. Because, a lot of times mercy in this equation of how we live in peace, how we take on a project of peace for 30 days, mercy can feel a little more elusive to us. Sometimes it can feel like, well, you're saying I'm not going to give somebody what they deserve. Or does that mean there's going to be a removal of justice? Or what does that mean? So how do you look at acts of mercy?
Man, that's the most fun one to ask that question. I started playing with this 1.5 years ago. Mercy brings dignity to the human being that you're next to. So it's a tiny bit different, because you're going from dehumanizing, which is what our society does right now, which is why I think we all feel such discord, because there's a dehumanizing effort through so much. Calling people out, saying hateful things that just are hateful. The divisiveness that is pervasive. We don't like it. Like, it's unsettling, because again, we were created for unity. And so when we access mercy, because it's so deep and it is so much at a soul level, it brings in with it freedom, which is a little bit different than kindness, okay, or thankfulness. The part that I just thought was so interesting is that when you combine the three, it's like this mysterious magic. I mean, it's so powerful. But it has been hard for me from the get-go to like take this concept of mercy and put it in a box, because I don't think you can. And so I looked. I was like, tell me, people that do mercy.
Yeah. What is this thing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm learning about it every day. Like right. I really am. This morning, I'm posting on Instagram something we even learned this weekend that I was just like, wow, I hadn't really thought about that. So James Keenan is a Jesuit priest. There was a year in the Catholic Church, I think 3 years ago or 4 years ago, maybe it was the year Jubilee, and the word was mercy. The Pope had chosen the word mercy. And so James Keenan, a Jesuit priest, defined it as the willingness to enter into someone else's chaos, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Saint Francis of Assisi, who was known as the channel of mercy, he calls it a heart sensitive to misery. And that which seemed bitter to me, this is what he said, was changed into sweetness of soul and body, which is pretty amazing to think about something that seems bitter to you being changed. And the bitterness to him was the disdain for lepers, which actually was woven into him by the culture. Mm-hmm. And he learned that within those lepers were very, very worthwhile human beings. And it changed everything for him.
Right,
and
right.
I just thought that was beautiful. Mother Teresa says mercy in action was, quote, the salt which gave flavor to her work. It was the light which shone in the darkness of the many who no longer had tears to shed for the poverty and their suffering. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like, for Mother Teresa, she saw the poverty and suffering, literally, and especially in economic terms. We have it all. I mean, today, it's around you today. And in this strange environment that we live in right now, after a pandemic, it's hard to see a lot of the poverty because it's really deep. People feel lonely and they're scared and they're spent. Right, and they've spent a year in their house. They don't know how to drive in traffic anymore, So everyone's honking.
Yeah.
And it's like, rather than be like, but, it's sort of like, for a moment, can you just pause and go, I don't know what's going on in that person's life, but if they're honking, something. And right. May our hearts turn to compassion. And the same with our kids. As a mom, you've got it all day, every day. Rather than take the bait that says, oh, if they fail their test, they're going to be a failure. Don't do it.
Right, right.
Go to the place where they're tired. Meet them where they are. Walk alongside them, pick them up. We can pick each other up. Pick that mom up that needs to be picked up next to you, that needs to be encouraged, but we don't know how to do it because we've been doing nothing. Yeah. So how do we go from nothing to a gazillion miles an hour? I don't know, but apparently we're supposed to.
And apparently we used to. I don't know how we used to do it. I love that you connect this idea of mercy and the dignity of the other person, because here's what I find sometimes, Kay, is that when we talk about having kindness towards someone, it's great to do it. It sometimes can come from a place of pity. And that's not wrong. It's not necessarily a wrong thing if you find that is that you feel bad for somebody and so you're going to do something nice for them. But when you come at it from a place of you are esteeming them as a peer, you are esteeming them as a fellow human being, that just carries a different kind of vibe to me. It's just something that's a little bit different. And I love that you distinguish that. So how is it for people doing the 30 day? So they're going to do this soul 30 day. Is it just a practice of finding a place to express thankfulness, a place to express kindness, and also try to glimpse that ephemeral mercy? I mean, is that the practice for 30 days? And do you track that? What do you do?
Yeah, we definitely tracked it. When we did it, I went out and bought little notebooks for my kids and my friends too. And it's funny, they ask, could we have an app for that? Because I'd like to have it on my phone. So believe it or not, there's an app for that, because I'm sort of like, if you can say, can there be an app for it? There's got to, in this day and age, be a cheap way to put together an app. So there's actually an app. And if you go to Peace Project Soul and then the number 30, there's an app. And you can track it on that. It has a notes section, because I do think it's really important to track it. And there you go. Oh, something to do. That sounds awful. But the great thing is that you really do track it. And the stuff I have learned, it disarms you in the most beautiful way, because it takes away this combative mode that I think we have, or our walls that we build, or whatever it is, that are like expectations that you brought up earlier. Expectations are brutal because they're just like, they are overwhelming. And it's sort of like, it takes you out of walking through a day to actually living the day. And I think what you said about the dignity of the human beings that are next to us, it actually takes it from like a day being kind of black and white and makes it technicolor.
I love that.
And it's so beautiful. And so, yeah, it's worth doing in any capacity, just for yourself.
Right.
And the freedom that comes with it is pretty significant. And so far, I haven't seen an end to it. And so sometimes on Instagram, anybody can find me at KYma on Instagram. I am in my mid-50s, so I am mediocre at social media. I'm just saying, I'm not the best, and whatever. But every so often, I really do. I've had people say to me, will you do a Soul 30? And so I'm in it right now. I'm on day 22. And I've never gone one day where I haven't sat there. You start with thankfulness, get ready. It's a floodgate. And it's almost like thankfulness primes the pump. Kindness actually makes you act. So it takes it from just being a mental thing to an action point, which is so significant. Right. And then to add the mercy to it takes it to the soul level. And to engage in that capacity, it's so significant and wonderful. I think it is that part where the Lord is going, enjoy these days. These are your days. And they're good. There's good in them because I am in them. Mm-hmm. And these people around you, we're the only part of creation that's the Imago Dei, meaning in the image of God. And that's so significant. These people matter a lot to him. Absolutely. Every single person.
Beautiful way for us to become intentional about the pursuit of peace in our lives, which equates to the pursuit of God. Kay Wyma, so great to have you on, and thankful for you. Thanks for your kindness and being here today, and for the beautiful mercy that you've spoken over a lot of moms today. Just appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Hey, if you love listening to the podcast, do me a solid. It is so great when you go over and give us a 5-star wherever you're listening to your podcast. It helps bump it up so other listeners can find it as well. I want to send out a big thanks to Donna, our producer, and Rebecca, our content coordinator. Be sure and check out the show notes that Rebecca puts together each and every week. And I can't wait to see you next time on the All Mom Does podcast.